Okay, so again, thanks for having me. I put together a little bit of an overview of just kind of the, the experiences I've gone through, starting from a student all the way to where I'm at now. And just to go a little bit over my own history here, I attended Mac in Hamilton. I did communication studies and multimedia. I've kind of found out after graduating, like I didn't really have any job skills or any practical skills. Like I really, they really taught me how to write and how to think. But upon graduating, I had taken a history of graphic design course at Mac, and that one little course kind of stuck with me. So after a year, I decided to go back to school and do OCAD and really focus in on graphic design, and I loved it. Like it was everything I wanted to be, and happy I went. So from there, you know, I don't know if this has changed, but design programs are heavily print focused, or still kind of based off of print design. But I had been doing some web design on my own, a little bit of freelance here and there or side projects. So that kind of allowed me to get this job right out of school at a ad agency called Grip Limited, which recently got bought out and I think folded into Dentsu, so they don't no longer exist as they used to. But that was kind of a great opportunity for me. From there, I did 2 years there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I went freelance for a long time, I think 6 or 7 years. Alongside that, I founded my own little side project that I call Abro Design Company, which I'll talk a bit more about later. And where I'm at right now is at a studio called Office Bureau, which is fully remote, and I'm a senior designer there. Again, primarily working on interactive, but also some print stuff as well. So just kind of moving alongside all of that was the RGD. As I mentioned, I was on the student committee a little bit. From student committee, I moved into provisional while I was at GRIP. Actually, let me rewind. You know what? I have another slide for that. I won't. So yeah, some provisional. As a freelancer, I thought it would be beneficial to get certified, because you're kind of on your own as a freelancer, and I really wanted to have that legitimacy kind of literally attached to my name, RGD at the end of it. So I decided at that point to get my certification and join the membership committee as well. And as of today, I'm on the board and also co-chairing the education committee, and also doing a lot of stuff here and there for RGD, which is, you know, is great, and it's always great to kind of give back to the community. So I did mention, yeah, I'll start at GRIP, which was about a 100 people agency. So to get there, I attended an event called RGD Head Start, which became RGD Creative Directions, and I don't think exists in any of those forms anymore, but I know Hillary is always thinking of student programming or programming geared towards students and intermediaries. So I'm sure there's something that kind of replaces this. But anyway, this is when we did things in person at the reference library. So there's a lot of speakers and portfolio reviews. I signed up for all the portfolio reviews that I could, and I met a bunch of people, exchanged cards. I went home, I emailed, or I connected on LinkedIn, I think, to as many as I could. Two of them became interviews. So it was already a soft entry point. They knew me, they met me, they saw my work. So they said, I said like I just graduated, looking for opportunities. So I got an interview at a small design firm and the aforementioned ad agency. And I was kind of these offers. I got offers for both. They came in at the same time, and I kind of had to decide what I wanted out of this, which is like this big ad agency and the opportunity to work on global clients, or a smaller design firm, which I knew that eventually I wanted to. That's where I wanted to be, but excuse me. I found out that this agency, and I never really quite put it together, had a little bit of a religious client bent, and that wasn't my thing. So I leaned toward the ad agency instead, even though I don't like advertising, but I saw it as kind of the better opportunity for my career at that point. Even though, like, in the back of my head, like you get the chance to work for these global clients and have that in your portfolio and on your resume. But I don't get out of bed in the morning hoping to work on a Taco Bell ad, for example, as fine a product as I'm sure it is. So I knew there was a time limit on that, and that was just fine. But the company itself is great. I got a lot of awesome experience becoming a better designer, just kind of figuring out how to work within a team and a larger agency. So just some of the works that I did there. I got to be a part of a redesign of the Dare website. I was responsible for the mobile version of it. Did some work, lots of work for Honda and Acura. Got to do some responsive emails, which were, I think, pretty new, kind of a new technology at the time. Again, more Honda stuff. These were just some concepts for, and ultimately didn't get used, but for a website. And I include this with an asterisk. As I mentioned, like I'm not a big advertising guy. I remember on my first day, first or second day, my boss came up to me and asked me, we're gonna put you on RBH. And I didn't know what the hell that was. He explained it's Rothman, Benson, and Hedges, which is tobacco. So you can't actually advertise for cigarettes, but this website is a connection between the retailers, so the convenience store owners, for example, and RBH. And he asked me, like, do you have any like moral objections to working on this? And this, keep in mind, is my second or first day, so I don't feel like I'm in much of a position to say anything. And it, looking back, I would love to have rejected rejected it, but it's not so inherently evil because at least it's, you know, it was for the retailers. But this is kind of like underlying, and um, you have to be aligned with the work that you want to do long term. You can't, you can only do it for so long if you don't believe in what in who you're doing it for. So that's kind of why I included this guy. Some takeaways from that, as I mentioned, like opportunity to work with global brands, and that kind of adds legitimacy when you can throw down like, oh yeah, I worked on Honda or whatever. But you kind of work in a silo. That goes from like creative director down to you, and then from you, to maybe a developer in this case. So you're not connected with, you only do one thing and you get really good at that thing, but that's all you kind of do at a big place. And as I mentioned, just alignment with clients is, it's not really in your hands at that stage to kind of be aligned, unless you're into, um, of course you could be into working with those clients, and that's perfectly fine. But in my case, I really wasn't. So from there, I jumped out to freelance. Um, this is one project I did for a company called EagleCom. I did their branding website. The connection here being that my brother worked for the company, so it was an easy um, kind of get. I did a lot of work uh, for BMO Global Asset Management through another agency. That kind of paid my bills. Nothing too exciting or world burning at this point, but it certainly allowed me to live as a freelancer while I got other projects in and out. This is just a website I did for a client. So yeah, like work can be kind of sporadic. It can be um, a little bit like take what you can get. If you're a freelancer, it takes a lot of time to build up kind of a client base and steer that client base towards what you may or may not want to be doing. And full disclosure, while I was freelancing, I had a bunch of chronic health problems. So it wasn't the greatest solution. It wasn't the greatest situation for me um, to be doing it, but I kind of had to be because I don't feel that I could have taken on any sort of full-time position with those health issues going on. So this was kind of the flexibility that I really needed at that point. This is just a sports kind of I guess, sports score website that I got through one of my former coworkers at Grip. So like freelancing is definitely like it's all connections. It's all who you know, and those connections build other connections. Just some takeaways kind of from my freelance experience. Like one of the great things is you are your own boss. You make your own hours. You work on whatever you kind of want to. That being said, you still need to take on work to pay the bills. But the downside of freelance is that you are your own boss. There's nobody else to help you. It's just you. If you have a problem with the client, you got to work that out. I had uh, several projects in a row that didn't quite go well for me. Uh, all the while I wasn't healthy, so there was a bit of a dark period uh, there. It can be tough. So it's good to build in uh, safeguards, contracts, like you figure all that stuff out as you go. And it's a tough learning curve, I'd say, but um, it's a push and pull with those freedoms you get from being your own boss with the negatives. Another thing is like, as I kind of mentioned, like if you're a freelancer, you're an accountant and you're a client manager and you're doing business stuff. You can't just sit down, crack open Illustrator or whatever and design. That's a portion of what it is. You're I mean, I don't even like the word freelancer. You're a business owner essentially, and you have to do all these things to keep that business running. I kind of touched on this. Like, there's nobody around you unless you build those systems or connections. So if you're freelancing, like I highly recommend surrounding yourself with other freelancers or a network, um, figuring out how you can get out of your house if you're working in your house, work in a coffee shop type of a thing or a co-working space. Because without coworkers, um, it can affect your mental health a little bit. Like, so I feel like that was overwhelmingly negative, but it isn't. Like, freelancing can be completely rewarding. You can really thrive in it. I recommend uh, maybe dipping your toes in uh, if you can, like with a side project here and there, something kind of low stakes, just to kind of figure it out. Um, that being said, my next point here is with freelancing, like you're in control of your destiny and you make your own opportunities. So one of the things that I was able to do as I was freelancing is work on some of my on side projects and to really find something that I wanted to do. And with freelancing, I had the time to do it, and nobody can say otherwise. So this is kind of a side project I did, which developed out of I made this thing for my then girlfriend, now wife, um, for a birthday gift. Uh, it was just a list of the libraries in Toronto. The idea, like, oh, let's go visit all the libraries in Toronto, check them off. Um, 6 months after that, I posted it on Twitter, and I'm not a heavy social media user at all, but I tagged Toronto Public Library with this, not this mock-up, this is the newer version, but the older version. They saw it, they retweeted it, and all of a sudden I had people like retweeting it and responding like, I want one of these. So it forced my hand. I had to go out and figure out how to produce this book and get it to people, which I did. I had to figure out e-commerce, shipping logistics, print production, in addition to designing the thing. But like this project kind of saved me a little bit. I mentioned some of the troubles that I was having. This was huge for me. It was something that I did believe in. Libraries, like that's a cool subject, a cool client if you can get it. Toronto Library. foundation, even though I'm not doing it for them, but that is kind of like the end subject or client, if you will. So this little project got picked up by CTV News. I ended up doing a TV interview, which at the time was terrifying, but I did it. It got written up in the National Post, on Mental Floss, on some other publications, Blog TO, and I shouldn't have put Radio One in there because that was for something else. But yeah, this project, I still sell these things. People still buy them. I'm amazed every time I get a notification on my phone, new order. Like this was like 6 years ago that I did this, and it still has kind of legs. And when I kind of interviewed for the position that I am in now, they knew this project. So again, amazing to me. So I highly recommend, finding a passion project or a side project and just getting it out into the world and seeing what happens. It can really kind of keep you going when you might not be working on, the clients or the work in your actual job that you want to be. And I kind of followed that up, the library passport, with some greeting cards, because I figured they would be easy to produce, and they are. Just you have to work on the creative aspect of it. These cards, I think, also again, Toronto focused, had a little bit of media attention, I think, on Reddit and Blog TO. And again, another kind of Toronto greeting card project that I did. I'm trying. I've been noodling on a project relating to Scarborough Parks for the last little while, but now that I'm full time, it's a little bit harder to work on these passion projects. So that goes back to like being one of the benefits of freelance. I could do this stuff. I had the time and the energy and the creative energy to do this. So as I mentioned, like you're not just doing this for I mean, you are doing it for yourself, but it creates opportunities for you. It gets your name out there. You build an association with that project in your name. Like, oh, you're the guy that did that. I love that project. Like I want to work with you. And that there were other opportunities. I think I don't think anything came of them, but people emailed me because of that library passport project. I think I met with one design firm that just wanted to meet me. So just lots of goodwill coming from this little thing. It still amazes me. Yeah, and you learn new things. If you're kind of stuck doing one thing at work, which I primarily, the work that I get is primarily interactive and web. So as you can see, I took my side projects as an opportunity to do print stuff, because it's not something I get to do on the regular. And you kind of feed your creative soul when you do these things. And for me, like I feel like I need to do these. It's these ideas kind of zoom around in my head, and until I can express them in some way, they're just ringing around my head, and it drives me crazy. So a creative outlet is important in that case. And that kind of brings me to where I'm at now, which is a full-time designer. As I mentioned, so I guess I was kind of ready to move on from freelance. I responded to a job posting. It was on their website, so it wasn't advertised or anything. I have a list of I have a spreadsheet list of agencies that I had been trying to update just to go through and check off, see what's going on at these firms and agencies. I think Office Bureau was one of them, and I came across their posted ad. I had no idea how long it had been posted for, or if it was like if they filled that position and they just forgot to leave it up. But I emailed them anyway, sent them some portfolio stuff that ended up turning into a little freelance project for them. So I did this website for a furniture designer, just kind of as a trial, and then we both said, like, this feels good. Why don't we turn it into full time? And that's how I became a senior designer, which was kind of a jump for me. Like, to be my last full time job was interactive studio artist. That was my first full time job, and then that big period of freelance where you're just kind of you're not a title, you're just you, and that can kind of sometimes feel like you get imposter syndrome. At least I did, for sure, as a freelancer, because again, there's nobody there to back you up. You don't really have a title. You make up your title. I probably switched what I called myself several times. And then to kind of jump from freelancer to somebody else calling you a senior designer, it was quite nice. And also, like, when the hell did I become a senior? Because I had that big gap again, where it's just like I'm just Noah, like I design things. So that's kind of the transition into full time, and I feel that I completely lucked out here with this company. The founders are so inclusive and sensitive to like work-life balance and the culture that they've created at this firm, this agency, which is like, I think there's like 16 people or so. It is amazing, and I would have never taken a full-time role otherwise, because as I mentioned, like, I had those health problems. I didn't want to be worked to the bone or feel that I would just destroy my health again for this company. So coming in, like, I would have a lot of negative feelings towards work and working for other people. And that just speaks to how good I felt about this company and how they were running things, and the vibe that I got when meeting with the founders and some of the staff there. So in addition to that, I'm aligned with the clients. Obviously, they had some of their portfolio pieces listed on their site. So they had worked for like environmental causes, design related clients. It was kind of a green light for me there as well. So again, I feel like I definitely lucked out finding them, but it's also like in a way, everything that I went through previously kind of led me here. Or like there's this, it's luck, but it's also I earned it in a way. Like you kind of point yourself in a direction, and there's an element of chance, but yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. But anyway, the first project I did for them, or the first big project I did for them, was I got to work on a website for Discover Tourism, which is the government of Canada. Canada, yeah. It's a government arm, and this project was to promote. The idea was to promote the careers available in tourism to educators or prospective employers. So it was a big website. I got to, design some icons. In this case, I designed the website, like the concept. I did the production. So I took the concepts from desktop, tablet to mobile. Like it's in a smaller design firm, you get to kind of wear all these hats, and there's more flexibility, as I mentioned, than an ad agency, for example, where you're kind of locked into that one thing. In this case, not. Like I remember being in this is a fully remote position, but we met up in person to do like a strategy session, and do some like wireframes and stuff, like pinning things on a board. And I just felt like at that moment, like this is it. Like I've always wanted to be in this kind of environment, like pinning wireframes and shit on a wall, moving things around. So it was kind of a great experience as the first project for them. So yeah, like again, it's all about finding work that feels right. What one of the great things about working in a design firm is that it's design centered. So you're kind of at the center of what's going on, and you're around other creative people as well. There's always a lot going on. I feel very busy, but not overwhelmed. So there's really no time to there's no downtime to be like stuck in a rut, or a creative rut. Like your creative juices are going, because they have to be. Full-time work, you get paid regularly, and every time I get a notice that there's money in my bank account every 2 weeks or whatever, it amazes me. Like it's such a difference from the sporadic, and like trying to run down clients and be like, hey, did you pay that invoice I sent over? Like, so just to have money coming in on for a full-time basis is that could be the whole benefit. Like that makes me happy enough. Yeah, and like you in a design firm, like you do get to work on, you do have more flexibility to work on different aspects of design, but you get to focus on design, and you have a project manager on one side and a developer on the other. So your job is to really kind of get into the design, and you don't have to focus on client management or any of the other things that you might with full-time, or sorry, with freelance rather. So, I mean, I hope that was somewhat useful. I never worked in-house, so I don't have any insights there, but I hope at least I've touched on a few different ways that you can kind of get by in the design world. I did want to mention, like, at no point during my career have I felt that I have figured it out. And I feel like as a student, like listening to presentations like this, or seeing other people, or scrolling through on LinkedIn, that those, oh, they must have figured it out. Like, how do I get there? But I feel like you're kind of doing it as it comes. Confidence can come and go in waves for sure. And I think if I could tell myself one thing is, like, it's good to pressure yourself to move forward and to get where you want. But I really wish I could tell myself just to go a little bit easier on myself. Like, you can't be comparing yourself to everybody. The things that you go through from student to wherever you end up, like that, those things all shape where you kind of need to be. So if I can impart one thing, it's be kind on yourself as you kind of enter into the job world, which I guess you are going to be not no I guess you're not all fourth years, but some of you may be graduating. So hopefully you follow that piece of advice. Thank you very much, and I guess I will open it up to questions.
That was awesome. Yeah, very insightful, and always a good thing to kind of look back at yourself and realize that not everybody has it figured out, and it's okay not to know what you're doing. So I'm going to open the floor to any questions that anybody has. We have about 5-10 minutes for questions, so I will leave it to that. I have one question. Do you ever see yourself in the future going back to freelancing?
Oh, sorry, I'm just opening the chat. I'm just catching up on the chat. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Michelle, Annika. I will talk to you about that in a second. In terms of going back to freelance, maybe I feel that I would be in a better position to go back at this point with what I know and what I know that I don't want to happen. So I would at least have a better sense of what to put in place. But right now I'm super happy being full-time, but I can imagine 5-10 years again, maybe wanting to kind of take another kick at it and see what I can do. The great thing is you can always return back to a job. So maybe, to answer your question. Did you, Michelle, did you go to school with Annika?
Yes, yeah, me and Annika went to school together. So she just graduated, but I'm entering 4th year. But also, I did have a question for you.
Yep.
So you mentioned a little bit about having chronic health issues and how that affected your work in design. I myself also have chronic health issues. So like, how do you manage kind of like maybe that like mental drive where you want to be able to do work, but like you're unable to for like some reason, or also like how that also affects kind of a more corporate kind of thing where they're like, oh, why can't you, like how do you manage that?
You just like cut into my core with that question. Like the that's the whole thing. Like I want to do this thing and I kind of can't, or there's this huge gap between um what I want to do and what I can do, and your head and your mind is so far ahead of where you physically can be. So um to that, I recommend therapy. And I'm laughing, but I'm also serious, because an outside perspective there can kind of pull you back into just kind of accepting, uh, the situation. Because as I kind of ended off the presentation, I have been and still am incredibly hard on myself, and uh, that doesn't help. Like it doesn't help if you have a health problem that's dragging you down. That's also not your fault. So you also can't be comparing yourself to people without health problems, because that's a whole different situation. Uh, does that, you had a second part to that question? I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I think that helped. And I think also part of my struggle is kind of like the 9 to 5, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, the rat race, like where it's like it is hard and I do want to like take a break, but I feel like I will suffer professionally if I do. So it's a bit of a struggle mentally, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I can understand that. Like towards the end of my job at Grip, I was so sick. Sick physically and done emotionally with the work that I was doing. It got to the point where like I have to quit, and just get healthy. And that getting healthy was a very long road that ended in surgery. Only recently that kind of corrected the problems that I needed to correct in order to work full time. So like health is always first. You can't work a 9 to 5 if you're um, half healthy or half in it. And that's why I did freelance. So uh, it's honestly tough. Like I'd suggest like freelance as a way to kind of manage that. But as you saw, that also has issues. My advice there is being honest with your employer. Uh, this is my situation, and I can't sacrifice my health for this job. It's not, well, it's not worth it. But you don't tell them that, but you think that to yourself. And if they give you any flack, then maybe that's just not the place you need to be, because there's no there's no job or work situation that's worth uh, losing your well-being over. Um, so yeah, my advice is to kind of be upfront with it. I was completely upfront with um, my now bosses. I told them I have this chronic condition. Uh, I was not able to work full time for this long, and it felt awesome. Like I'm not hiding anything. If I compare that to being at Grip, I was hiding everything, and it sucked because you're trying to keep up in an ad agency, you know, there's that grind culture, which is stupid, and that'll bring you down eventually, and it did to me. So you don't want to you don't want to get in those places. That was long-winded, but I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you. That was very helpful. I really appreciate it.
I see.
Yeah.
Autumn.
Yeah, so to be mindful of everyone's time, I think we'll have Autumn's questions be the
Sure.
last one. So yeah, there you go.
Time management. And how did I put myself out there as a freelance designer? Time management as a freelancer is one thing, because again, nobody's telling you to. It's your schedule. It's real tricky. There are days where I just did not get out of bed in a good time. It kind of varies to how you work, but I find just sticking to 9 to 5 just as a kind of a baseline, even though I don't have to as a remote worker or as a freelancer, has helped. It's in that sense, it's less how do I manage my time and more about building in structure to your day. So, if you can build yourself in to force yourself out of bed or to force yourself to work, that in turn will manage your time for you, hopefully. And in terms of getting myself out as a freelancer, RGD, if I can plug RGD, joining committees, doing events. As I said, I got a job through an RGD event. So definitely do those things. Social media, again, I hate social media, but it launched that whole project. So be mindful of, again, comparing yourself to other people or living through it. But Instagram or Dribble, I guess, is a good way to kind of get yourself out there. It's just kind of a matter of just saying, like, screw it, I'll put it out there. Like, that's what I did for the passport. That's what I did for those greeting cards. I just threw it on Reddit, I think. It's terrifying, but nothing will happen if you don't put it out there. So that would be my advice for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you again for joining us for our last meeting.